Good morning, or actually good evening. You're listening to WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 on the dial. This is the BLAINESWORLD Show. We're ordinarily heard each Wednesday at 9 a.m., but you can also watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. And what you're watching tonight is a special edition of the BLAINESWORLD Show for Facebook Live viewers. And if you guys would all wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world, who's ever watching you, okay, this is who we're going to be interviewing. And I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce a whole bunch of folks tonight. But first of all, I'd like to thank Stephanie Hickling-Beckman for being my guest tonight. And Stephanie, I guess we should introduce you as, what title do you want to use tonight?
Director is fine tonight.
Okay, director. And I like that, by the way. I've asked you this before. Is that the same thing too as an actor, or do you call actors, or do you call them actors and actresses? What do you call them?
Actors.
I love it. I
sing as an actress.
I believe in it, so that's cool. Same thing. I've never heard of directress. So right. Stephanie Hickling-Beckman is a show director of an upcoming show you're going to hearing about. But in addition, Stephanie, you do something else in your spare time, and you also are in charge of a local theater company, and that is?
Different Strokes Performing Arts Collective. We're the producers of this show also. Okay,
and you'll be hearing about the show. I'll next turn my attention to Bjorn, pronunciation Goller?
Goller, yeah.
Goller, I'm sorry. And I've had the pleasure of seeing Bjorn several times. Plus, I don't know if you remember, I had the pleasure of having you as a host on a Zoom tour once. Did you do a Zoom tour? Zoom bus tour?
No, that's Drez Ryan. My main man, Drez.
Okay, it wasn't you, but okay, Drez was the host of that. Bjorn, I have seen you in a couple of shows at Different Strokes. Talk a little bit about, so your background is as an actor?
Yes, I made that decision late in life. I was probably, I was 27, 28 when I made the choice to move into production. I left my career in the military after having children and found a home in Asheville, North Carolina. I went to UNCA, performed in quite a few main stage shows there. I was introduced to Montford Park Players, performed in Midsummer Night's Dream with Jason Williams as my director. As a first classical production, or classic production, it was interesting to be the lead. I played Oberon. I was kind of thrown to the Sharks in a good way. It was a lot of fun. That crowd is an amazing audience. Hi. And that's my 2-year-old, Kennedy, and my wife, Haley.
Now, so that was your very first play as a kid? You never acted?
No.
Unusual. So what made you want to become an actor at the age of 27?
I was a musician as a child. And after leaving the military, I knew two things. One, I didn't want to carry firearms anymore as a profession. Nothing against that profession, right? But I was done with it at the time, and I really miss performing. I like connecting with an audience. I like knowing that the people taking in the information you're providing are in sync with you, right? They feel you. They're there with you. I like storytelling, originally, and oddly enough, or funny enough, I was seeing a therapist as I was exiting the military. And she suggested it. She suggested I go the technical field, right? So technical theater. Currently, I work as a technical director for a school. I've done some set design and things of this nature as well. But when I went to UNCA, first thing I did was perform, and I fell in love with it from then on.
Well, I'm very glad you chose that route. But yeah. Back to the music thing. Are you still a musician?
I can play. I can jam around a few things. Percussion would be my strongest thing to participate in.
Stephanie, keep that in mind. So when we do the first musical for the season, we have our drummer here. Great. Yes. And Aiden, I'll ask you the same question. So what got you into acting?
Um, Originally my parents. It was also Montford Park Players. It was their production of Christmas Carol. I want to say in 2011, 2012. I think 2012 was the year. Um, it was their production of Christmas Carol, and I was cast as Tiny Tim, and the rest of my family was in that. And it just kind of became a yearly thing that I would do Christmas Carol over and over again. I've done Christmas Carol so many times. I love
Are,
that show.
are you always Tiny Tim?
Not always.
Okay.
I was for the first few years, but then I became a better actor, and I also became less tiny. So
So,
I have since played lots of roles. My favorite one that I've played in that show is probably Bob Cratchit or The Ghost of Christmas Future, because they're both very fun roles.
so they haven't asked you to be Ebenezer Scrooge yet? Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I haven't got to that level of maturity, I think.
Or I'd say, I don't think it's fair, though, that you typecast. We should be able to play any age.
Yeah. I have one of the fun things that really got me back into theater. I was kind of doing theater. I've been doing theater my entire life, but something that got me really interested in it was the Montford Moppets,
Right.
which is like a youth acting group in the area that I joined, and I know the lady who runs it very well. We actually did Christmas Carol last year, and it was fun. It was like an improv style Christmas Carol where we handed out roles each night. But yeah, I've been doing theater basically my entire life.
And one question I want to ask you, and I want Stephanie to pay attention to this one. Do you remember the very first role you ever played?
Yes.
What was it?
Tiny Tim.
Oh, it was Tiny Tim. Stephanie, because I think I mentioned this to you before, but I still have that fundraising idea I want to share with you, and I'll help Different Strokes with it. But what I want is Aiden, Rhea, Bjorn, everybody do their very first role they ever did. So, and what we'll do, you don't have to do the whole thing, just a 5-minute segment, because you said when you were a kid. Do you have a videotape of that somewhere?
Yes, actually. I have a recorded, I think it's a disc, I want to say. It's somewhere in a box we bring out every Christmas.
Stephanie, wouldn't that be a fun thing that everybody does the very first role? Bjorn, you're a little bit older on the first role, but I want you to think about that. Rhea, I'll ask you the same question. What got you into acting?
Well, I'm a writer. I don't act. God didn't bless me with those gifts. So I'm more in the writing, playwriting, and directing lane.
Well, so I'm sorry then. So in this play, what's your role?
I'm assistant director.
Oh, okay, cool. So have you ever done assistant directing before?
No, this is my first time. I directed a stage play, Transition, which is loosely based off of my memoir that I wrote in 2017 about some of my experiences as a Black collegiate athlete trying to navigate PWI.
Has that been produced locally?
Yes, it was produced back in April through ACT.
Hey, because I'm sorry I missed it, though. That's be a very powerful show. So is that what you eventually want to do? You want to get into directing?
Yes, for sure. And
Okay.
Stephanie's been the perfect mentor up until this point. So
now I'll give a compliment to both you and Stephanie, but you picked the right person to choose, to learn about assistant directing. And I guess that's the way to do it, that just kind of do it, get thrown into it, and go through a couple plays, then you'll be ready to do your own directing, you think? Is she getting there, Stephanie?
Actually, we've got a slew of apprentices with us for this show, and Rhea, of course, doing assistant directing. And in July, August, we'll be producing a show that they helm. So Rhea will be directing that show. I'll be assisting her in this case. And then our apprentices will be assisted by our regular stage manager and our set designer, Laura Lowe. So, yeah, her turn's coming.
Rhea, did you always know you wanted to do this? I mean, what got you into wanting to be into writing and directing, all that stuff?
I didn't. Writing was just something that was more of a outlet for me for things that I wasn't able to verbalize and different things that I've been through in my life. So it's only been in the past like 4 or 5 years that I've actually taken it more serious, and then gotten into directing in the past 2 years. So I'm still pretty green on some of it, but I just kind of write from what job places on my heart and my experiences, and then the people around me.
Just curious, in terms of writing and directing, the reaction to writing a play and then directing at the same time, would that be hard to do?
It's very hard. I don't know if I would do it again, but yeah, it's
Stephanie's
definitely.
shaking her head no.
Everybody knows how I feel about that.
What about writing and directing?
I don't think you should direct a play that you've written, and I don't think you should do them both at the same time.
And how about, Stephanie, it amazes me, you see this sometimes in movies, people do not only to write and direct, but then to be in the play at the same time? Or
But for movies, it's different, Blaine, because
Point.
they have dailies, so they
Right.
watch themselves and they get to go back and fix what happened. When you're directing, you can't jump on the stage and run back up to the audience and keep doing that. It will drive you crazy. So movies is a little bit different than plays.
Have you ever directed a play that you were in, Stephanie?
Never, never.
Okay, that would be
I've
hard.
seen people trying to do it, and it's been a mess. So
Okay.
yeah, I learned by watching.
And I guess beyond and Aiden too, just from watching Stephanie and watching Rhea, do you guys ever have any interest in directing down the road?
I think they're really good directors. I'm not sure if it's like the type of like sort of work I'd be good at. I'm on stage. I don't know. I'm not very good at like the managing other people on stage, if that makes any sense. Like, or like, I don't know. I guess being in control is not a thing that I'm very. Oh, my apologies.
Okay.
Is not something that is, I guess, my specialty.
And beyond the same question, have you ever wanted to direct?
I'd never really thought about it. Stephanie has told me on a couple occasions that I should take a swing at it, and I feel like in this coming year, I likely will. I don't feel like I'll have the required amount of time during this next year and a half to perform. I think it has another type of commitment. So I'd like to take a shot at it in the coming year. And
Okay.
We'll see.
Down the road. And Stephanie, that kind of segues, I guess, into talking about the upcoming show that Different Strokes is going to be doing. And Rhea is assistant directing. The name of that show is what?
Monsters of the American Cinema.
Yeah, love the name of the title. How'd you find it?
I found it because I directed a show for UNCA last year called Hindsight 2020, and it was supposed to be the students writing about how 2020 had impacted them. And they each wrote monologues where I knew there would be an instance where someone didn't have the monologue or couldn't write it, one of the actors. So I just went looking and found a monologue called Cold Foam by Christian. And he allowed us to use it with no royalties attached. And I just had his name in my head. And as I was looking for a show to do for this time slot, I ran across a show by him, which was Monsters of the American Cinema, and then decided to read it. And I fell in love with it and reached out to him and told him I wanted to produce it. So he's an emerging playwright. So this will be the second time the show's been performed.
One of the great titles of all time. I just love the title. Without giving the whole show away, could you kind of give a Reader's Digest version of what the show is about?
It's about a father and son, which is Bjorn and Aiden's characters, Remy and Pup, who own a drive-in movie theater. And their favorite thing to do is play this game where they name monsters from plays and stuff. But there's a lot of double entendre that you see throughout the play. Remy is actually Bjorn's stepdad. He was married to Bjorn's father. He was married to Pup's father. So he's a gay black man raising a teenage white boy. So
Okay, I was wondering the connection. Yeah. Aiden, in your life as a kid, did they have drive-ins still, or did you ever go to drive-in?
There was one time that my mom told me about where she and my dad put my brother and I in the car, and we drove all the way out to this drive-in. By the time we got there, my brother and I were fast asleep. They just decided to turn the car around and go home. So that was my one very, very limited experience with the drive-in in my life.
And Rhea, do you have any experience with drive-ins?
No.
No, never.
I do
So you
not.
never at one? Very
No.
exciting. So come
We
to
got
the
a lot of
show.
babies.
Well, so what?
It's a lot of
Stephanie?
babies in this. A lot of babies on the screen right now.
Exactly. And beyond the same question, you ever go to drive-ins?
I have. I can tell you the movie I saw.
And the movie was
Speed
Speed. Okay,
with Keanu Reeves. Yeah.
good film to go to. Stephanie, you
Yeah.
ever go to drive-ins? It's good.
Oh, so many, Bjorn, as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult. Yeah. I love a drive-in theater. I remember once my high school theater group, we went to see one, and we were in a friend's Jeep, and he had wrapped the speaker around the roll bar to the Jeep just so everybody could hear it well. And when we left, we forgot to unwrap it. So we heard this noise behind us, and the pole had pulled out of the ground, and we were trailing the speaker along with us as we went.
Your son ever go to a drive-in?
No.
Keep in mind, and you know the group well, Arms Around ASD, they do an annual, you know the group, right?
Yes, they do a drive-in.
Every year as a fundraiser, so much fun. And they have a old monster movie, and bring your son to it next year. They do it one time a year. They do
Where?
it at the different locations. Last time is at where that karate judo place is that Michelle's
Sun
active in.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
where I'm talking about. Yeah,
Actual-
look for it next year. Your son gets such a kick out of it. You know,
Oh, okay, for sure.
your significant other. Has she ever been to a drive-in?
Sure, yeah, sure.
Okay, but just a fun thing. So this must be fun for you guys. So especially with Aiden. So is it set in a drive-in, or how do we know it's at a drive-in?
It's a big part of the show that before Pup's dad passed away, he owned a drive-in, and it's kind of a big thing of keeping up the drive-in, and the drive-in, it sort of means a lot to them, I think. But the bulk of the actual story part is set in their trailer behind the drive-in. However, there's one particular part of the stage, which is the roof of their trailer, where they watch movies from the big screen. So it's incorporated.
Okay. Now, beyond same question. So you remember drive-in? We met your daughter before. How many children do you have?
I have 3.
Okay. Well, have they been to drive-ins?
None of them have.
Okay.
No.
So Stephanie, I should ask, and age appropriate, this show is geared at what level, would you say?
I'd say PG 17, 14, 17. It always depends on the child. Like Zay sees, my son sees everything that we do. And we just talk about it. It's a good conversation starter in our house for him to see our shows. But I think this is truly something that probably age 14 and up experience. So I'd say around 14 and up.
Okay. Talk a little bit about, if you would, Bjorn, and I'll ask Aiden the same question. Your relationship to the character you're playing. How do you feel about him?
Let me first start by saying I am playing a gay character, a gay man. I guess outwardly I present as a straight male, whatever we want to define that as. So for me, I feel as if I have to do my best to stay within the realm of examples that I've seen in my life of gay men, which I've had plenty of them around me, especially since I entered into the theater community. He's an interesting character, a person who really values empathy, and I think really values the ideals of a home, and a home, whatever that might look like to anyone. He is an activist, and in that way, I'll have to say braver than I. I have a lot of beliefs. But in my heart of heart, I know I can't call myself an activist. And I admire that about this character very, very much. We're around the same age, and I feel as though the character's expression of being a father in a lot of ways is similar to what I would, believe myself to be at a later stage in raising children. By that, I mean my children are young and Pup is much older. I am from, or I believe in parenting in a sense that you're raising an adult, they just don't know a lot yet. So I found it interesting to see Stephanie sort of struggle with this. What age would I find appropriate for my child? And I think that's certainly up to the parent. But I could see my child definitely at 14 seeing something like this. And I think Remy would too. Being an activist and being a father who sees his child, or a father figure who sees his child as an adult who just doesn't have enough information yet, and empathy can grow out of that point, right? And Remy certainly is I feel is a very heavily empathetic character.
And the same question. So you play how old in this show?
I believe my character is 16, I want to say.
Okay.
I'll have to check that, but I believe it's 16.
Okay, same question. So how do you feel playing this 16-year-old? Can you relate to him at all?
Yeah, I would say so. I can relate to him on some level, although it would be a very complicated relationship. In many ways, Pup is very, very, very different from me. However, there are some pretty solid lines where there's very strong overlap. And so, yeah, I definitely think I can definitely see myself as this character, but at the same time, there are very stark contrasts to me and Pup, in some ways that you will see in the show.
Would you call them challenging?
Yes, very challenging. Pup at times acts in ways which are not very socially acceptable, or just acceptable in general, I would say. However, I believe he doesn't. I don't think he does it out of a place of hatred, if that makes any sense. More just confusion. I don't know how to exactly put it into words. But I can relate on some level to Pup, albeit there are some very stark differences between us, I would say.
What you talk about is kind of points out one of the unique things about doing a show with Stephanie is that even hearing you, it sounds like, Stephanie, I want to talk about this show. I haven't even seen it yet, but there's some things I want to discuss. And Ria, have you've seen other things that Stephanie's done or produced or been involved in?
I have not.
Well, then I should just give you a heads up, which you probably have heard about. But one of the fun things is every show has a talk back, and it's really cool because as these guys are talking, I want to see the show, I want to talk about it, I want to discuss it. And it seems like this show, would you say, leads itself to a lot of discussion?
Oh, so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ria. And by the way, aside from Aiden and Beyond, Ria, is anybody else just a two-person play?
Yes.
Okay. So, it just lends itself to, people wanting to talk about it afterward. So, and you haven't necessarily seen it with Stephanie. Beyond has, but after every show, she has these talkbacks, and some of them are really cool. It's just people get to talk about it. So you don't get to do that often. And Stephanie, back to you, some of the highlights of the show. So it opens up when?
June 2nd and runs through the 18th from 7 on Thursdays through Saturdays at 7:30, and we've got one matinee on June 19th at 3:00.
Okay, so is that over 3 weeks or just 2? 3 weeks, okay. And talk a little bit about your experience, Stephanie, having plays now at Diana Wortham. What's your feeling about it?
It kind of gave us a step up, we were at the BB for so long, and our audiences were limited, and now we've moved to the Wortham, and we have more kind of recognition. We've got the show on the marquee outside. We have walk-ins, and we didn't really have walk-ins down that alley to the BB. So and being associated with the Wortham has kind of put us in another category that we weren't in before. So really appreciative of that. And then their staff is remarkable. We have folks going up into the ceiling to pull lights and put lights up and do all these things. And we have platforms set up by the time we get in there, and we got somebody on staff to help us with whatever we need. So it's really awesome having that kind of assistance to do a show.
And even the stage is like twice as large as such stage as you had before, maybe 3 times large as well. Before we wrap up, let me just check in with everybody, but one last time with you, Stephanie, the dates of the show, but also how do folks get tickets?
You can get tickets through going to our website. That's differentstrokespac.org, and just checking on shows, and the drop-down list will come up, and you just choose the show, and it has tickets. Or you can go directly to the Wortham website, Wortham events, I think it's worthamarts.org, and just click on events, and it'll take you to our show, and you can choose the dates that you want to go and buy your tickets that way. And
just a heads up, if anybody's who's ever watching this, if Stephanie's directing a show, you're going to enjoy it. That's kind of a guarantee. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'll ask, closing, Bjorn, after this show is over, when the show ends its run, do you have anything else on the books coming up?
I do not have anything else on the books as of right now.
That's what he thinks. We're
Okay.
going to talk about it.
Stephanie has something in mind. But yeah, I've seen you. I think I've seen you 2 shows at different. How many shows have you been at Different Strokes?
4 or 5.
4?
4 or 5. I think I've probably seen.
This will be 5, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen most of them, if not all of them. So look forward again. Anything you're in, I'm enjoying. I think I've seen you, Aiden, perhaps at Montford. But after this show, do you have anything else lined up for the summer?
I am doing. I cannot remember the exact number. I think it's Henry V. Yes, I'm doing Henry V in I want to say late July, August. I'll have to check the times on that.
And Montford, but so are you gonna be Henry V?
I might try for the part.
Well, you shouldn't typecast. You look forward to seeing you in that. Last question, Rhea. Anything else on your books? Writing, directing, producing? Anything in line after this?
Yeah, well, Stephanie spoke about it earlier, as far as kind of being at the helm of a new production. And then I'm also looking to produce my new stage play that I've written, Through Troubled Waters. And I'm also working on my first screenplay. So just got a bunch of different things going on right now.
Very exciting. Do me a favor too, either on Facebook or email, whatever. Keep me in mind. I'd love to have you, as we get into those projects, I'd love to talk about them as well. So look forward to meeting you at the show at Dinah Wortham. And one last time, Stephanie Hickling Beckman, wearing for a change many hats, director, title, person in charge of Different Strokes. The show name of the show one last time, and when it runs and tickets.
The name of the show is Monsters of the American Cinema. It runs June 2nd through 18th, Thursday through Saturday at 7:30, and on Sunday, June 19th at 3 p.m. at the Wortham Center for Performing Arts. You can get tickets through our website, differentstrokespac.org, or go directly to worthamarts.org and check on their events, and it'll take you to our show. And you can buy tickets that way as well.
Thanks to you all for joining me tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you in person in the near future. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Have a good night.